Hi, my name is Kayla Eckert. This research presentation is over social media's effect on online retailing and Generation Y's purchasing intentions. Social media is one of the most powerful technological advancements today. Social media has become such a large part of consumers' lives, especially Generation Y, who have grown up with technology. Generation Y is focused on what the latest and greatest trends are, and they get access to that information through social media. The retail industry is slowly trying to make their presence known on social media formats, but need further research and information to be successful. The retail industry struggles with keeping up with technology and how to reach their consumers the most efficient way. For retailers to stay relevant and successful, they need to be able to understand who their consumers are and what influences their purchasing behaviors. By studying social media outlets and how they affect Generation Y's purchasing intentions, retailers can better understand what influences their consumers and be more successful in connecting with their specific needs. The purpose of this study is to investigate social media outlets such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and fashion blogs to see if advertising on social media affects purchase intentions. The key terms used in this research paper are Generation Y, social media, online retailing, and purchasing intentions. Although there has been research on these four key terms, there is not enough research connecting these terms and understanding them and how they affect retailer success. With social media emerging as a huge retail outlet, conducting more research in literature on the terms Generation Y, social media, online retailing, and purchasing intentions will help correlate the information. Generation Y is one of the most important demographics to study because they are widely known as the next big generation. There have not been as many teenagers as there are in Generation Y since the baby boomer generation. Almost half of baby boomers' children are teenagers, making them the largest teen population in U.S. history, according to Morton. Generation Y is generally defined as the 71 million individuals born between 1980 and 1994, according to Trent, Sullivan, and Mattrieu. These individuals range from 14 to 31 years in age and are getting ready to enter college. Social media is another key term. It's a relatively new term, but it is extremely important to know because it is such a huge part of our society today. Social networks allow consumers to voluntarily post information, upload photographs, send and receive messages, join groups, and blog at their leisure, according to Kostler. With the growth of social media, there have been various types of social media platforms created. There are four main types of social media platforms that are important to the retail industry and will be discussed in this research paper. These social media platforms are Facebook, Twitter, fashion blogs, and Instagram. Online retailing is another key term, and it is important to understand the large growth of social media today. Online retailing can be most simply defined as the sale of goods and services through the internet. Purchasing intentions is another key term and is a huge factor in retailing. Purchasing intentions are the whole reason why a consumer decides to buy something. A purchase intention can be defined as the plan in which a person intends to buy a particular good or service in the near future. I'm going to talk about the hypothesis next. The first hypothesis is that social media will affect Generation Y consumers' online purchase behavior. The second hypothesis for this study is that Instagram will affect where Generation Y consumers shop more than Facebook and fashion blogs. The third hypothesis is that Gen Y consumers are more likely to buy from a retailer that has a social media site than one that does not. The survey was created to test the three hypotheses. The survey was developed for ages 18 to 28 or Generation Y, and the instructions specified to only take the survey if in this age range. The questions were developed to get an understanding of the sample's demographic information as well as their social media behavior. Each question was geared to receive some type of knowledge about what influences Generation Y purchases and what type of social media sources impact Generation Y the most. For the sample, 42 individuals between the ages of 18 and 29 were selected by purposive non-probability sampling for the research. Data was only collected from 30 of the completed surveys to maintain the validity of the research. 12 of the surveys were thrown out due to not meeting certain requirements for the study and only completing the study in a few seconds. The 30 participants represent the Generation Y cohort to better understand social media's influence on their purchases. All the participants had access to a smartphone and used their smartphone to access social media daily. The survey was posted through Facebook and was available for 3 weeks. The participants were encouraged to answer truthfully and were thanked for their time and help with the research. The sampling method for the research was selected through purposive non-probability sampling because of the specific generation the study focuses on. The instrument was developed by the researcher based on the research questions and 2 screening questions. The first screening question was the age of the participant. If they answered 17 or under or 29 and older, they were automatically sent into the survey. The other screening question asked if the participant had access to a smartphone and used that smartphone to access social media. If they answered no, they were sent to the end of the survey as well. The screening questions were created to ensure that the participants were in the Generation Y cohort and were aware of social media's presence in technology. The survey contained 7 multiple-choice demographic questions to define the characteristics of the participants. The demographic questions included gender, age, ethnicity, school background, employment information, and discretionary income received each month. There were also 4 psychographic questions that were asked to understand the participants' relationship with social media and online shopping. The results of the demographic portion of the survey showed that 76% of the participants were female and 24% were male. The age range for the questionnaire was listed as 17 and younger, 18 to 28, and 29 and older. None of the participants were 17 or younger or older than 29. The mean of the ages was 21 years old. 34% of the participants were 21, followed by 20% of the participants being 20 years old, and the third most common age of the participants was 22 years old, which was 15% of the participants. 87% of the participants were white Caucasian and 13 were Hispanic. When asked about their classification in the school, the most common answer was senior, which was 44%. The second most common was junior, which was 26%, followed by 15% being sophomores. Over half of the sample, which was 69%, was full-time students and 15% were part-time students. The sample also asked if they had worked full-time, part-time, or not at all. 46% worked part-time, 23% worked full-time, and 31% did not have a job. Interestingly, a large part of the participants had an unusually large amount of discretionary spending. 62% of the participants received more than $300 of discretionary spending each month. 18% of participants received $150 to $200 of discretionary spending, followed by 8% receiving $101 to $150 each month, and only 3% received $1 to $25 each month. When looking at psychographics, 100% of the sample answered that they had a smartphone. When asked how many hours a day they spent online, including on their phone and the internet, half of the sample, which was 50%, spent 2 to 4 hours, 32% spent 5 to 7 hours, 13% spent 8 to 10 hours, and 3% spent 11 to 14 hours. The least amount of time spent was 0 to 1 hours, which was 3% of the participants. Of their time spent online, 54% answered that 2 to 4 hours was spent on social media, and 46% answered that 5 to 7 hours of their time is spent on social media. Only 5% of the participants answered that they spent 0 to 1 hours of their time on social media. Okay, for the first hypothesis, social media will affect Generation Y consumers' online purchase behavior. This hypothesis was accepted. For the study, half of the sample, 50%, spent 2 to 4 hours each day online, and of that time online, 54% said that the entire time was spent on social media. Generation Y has lived through the age of the internet, globalization, environmentalism, and September 11th. Such unique shared experiences during one's youth unite and shape a generation, according to McGrindle. Generation Y is such a unique group because they are easily influenced by technology and things going around them. The fact that the majority of their time spent online is on social media proves how influential the social media world is. The participants of this study were asked if they use social media to get brand information about a product. The majority of them agreed. 67% of the participants follow retailers on social media. Also, 63% of the participants stated that they trust a retailer more if they have a social media presence. 89% of the participants stated that they have purchased a product after seeing it on social media. An interesting finding from this study was the amount of discretionary spending the participants had. More than half of the majority of the participants received more than $300 each month for discretionary spending. This shows how crucial it is for a retailer to maintain a social media presence to connect with this generation. Generation Y is also about to have the most spending and purchasing influence behavior of any other generation. The second hypothesis was Instagram will affect where Generation Y consumers shop more than Facebook and fashion blogs. This hypothesis is also accepted. For the study, participants were asked to rank their favorite social media source out of Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Pinterest, and fashion blogs. 58% chose Instagram as their favorite social media site. Also, when asked which social media site they trust the most, 59% of the participants listed Instagram as the most trusted. The participants of the study were also shown various advertisements on different social media sites and asked to choose which advertisement appealed to them most. Both times, Instagram was the most popular choice for participants. Also, when asked about Facebook advertisements, the participants relatively had no opinion. For example, the participants were asked questions about Facebook and advertising campaigns. The majority of the respondents neither agreed nor disagreed. If they found an interesting Facebook ad, they would tell their friends about it. The third hypothesis was Generation Y consumers are more likely to buy from a retailer who has a social media site than one who does not. This hypothesis is accepted. Results from this study and previous research supports that if a consumer trusts a retailer, this will reflect on their purchase intentions for that retailer positively. 83% of the participants of this study follow retailers on social media. 67% of the participants say that they trust the advertisements on social media sites. Also, during the study, participants were asked if they trust a retailer more that has a social media presence. 63% of the participants said that they did. Out of that 63%, 89% stated that they have purchased a product from a retailer after seeing it on a social media site. This goes hand in hand with the idea that trust is key in maintaining a good relationship with consumers. This rise in social media has formed many social media communities that create, share, and discuss anything that they want that is going on in the world. These social media communities are very powerful in influencing public opinion and purchasing behavior, according to Hempkins, McCarthy, and Silvestre. As previously stated, Generation Y is extremely influenced by social media, and a retailer that reflects a strong presence online is more likely to gain their trust. Now I'm going to talk about some implications in the study. Results found in this study further support the idea that social media is an increasingly important area of our society that needs to be understood. Generation Y spends nearly all their time only checking social media. This is important to the retail industry if they want to be able to connect with the next most powerful generation. Researchers have noted that many of the executives of companies understand how important a social media site is, but they aren't able to understand it. Findings in this study prove that retailers who have successfully integrated themselves in a social media presence will continue to thrive and be successful. Generation Y is paying attention to retailers more than ever on social media sites. This study supports researchers' theory that websites and advertisements need to be more appealing to Generation Y. According to research, Generation Y students are primary visual learners, which contributes to their fascination with social media and technology, according to Siegel and Tullis. Retailers are becoming more interested in gaining information about Generation Y, especially through their web and social media preferences. That is why it's surprising that little research is done to make sure web pages and media is appealing to them. There was a study conducted that tracked the participants' eye movement to see what appealed to them most on the page. Through this study, they found out that Generation Y may prefer pages that include a main large image of celebrities, little text, and a search feature, according to Siegel and Tullis. As an extremely technologically savvy demographic, Generation Y demands that retailers understand their needs and adapt to them in order to stay relevant in such a competitive marketplace. This research was supported in the study when participants were given different advertisements and asked which appealed to them most. On both occasions, the participants chose the Instagram advertisement to be the most appealing to them. The Instagram advertisements were just images on a simple, clean page with little text. This proves how visually influenced Generation Y is. If they do not like the way that a website looks, they are not going to bother with it. Generation Y spends the majority of their time online, so they are aware of the latest and greatest trends. A retailer is not going to be successful with this generation unless they know how to visually appeal to them or catch their attention. Some recommendations for further study. Although this study was effective in explaining social media's effect on Generation Y online purchasing intentions, there are a few limitations. One limitation is the size of the respondent group. It would be more effective to have a larger group of respondents from various backgrounds that are part of Generation Y. Having a large respondent group would just give more support and validation for the study. Hispanics and White Caucasians only took the questionnaire, mostly likely in the same area. It would be beneficial to the study to have more of a diverse background of respondents. Another limitation that could be improved would be to open up the survey to different demographic backgrounds, to compare the similarities and differences in the purchasing intentions. When gathering the questionnaires, it was apparent that many individuals over the age of 28 were interested in taking the questionnaire. It would be interesting to include different age groups. By comparing different age groups, it could help explain some of the questions that the study raises. Also, it would be interesting to be able to see if data in relation to gender. In this survey, only a few males took the survey, and the majority of their data had to be removed. For further research, it would be interesting to include the male population as well, because they are a large part of Generation Y too. This relates to one question the study was not able to answer, which was social media will affect the